So welcome to another installment of Communicast, the stories of good people doing great things in our community. With me today is Robin Brooks, an artist who I've known for a very long period of time in many different capacities, but she has a very compelling project that she's launching now, and it will be a virtual show during the month of October, and it's about stories of our foremothers. And I think with that, let me turn it over to you, Robin, and just tell us about the project, how it came about, and the inspiration for it.
Great. Thanks, Keith. And it's a pleasure to be here. The project started about around this time, well, in October of 2020, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and I had been working in my studio, having recently retired from public school teaching. So very invested in, just getting back into daily working. And when she passed away, it was just the shock right before the election. And I started thinking about what she had contributed to all of our lives, and how she made this world, laid the foundation for the kind of life I've lived, because I honestly don't know if I would have had the opportunities that I've had if it weren't for her. So I decided to make some art in her honor, and I made a piece called a Bouquet of Flowers. I sort of transformed it into Flowers for Ruth. And I looked up and found that her two favorite flowers are hydrangeas and freesia. Well, the flowers that I had painted were easily transformed into hydrangea, which are sort of white puffballs, if you don't know. And anyway, came up with a very colorful and piece that was full of love, and it just catapulted me to start thinking about other foremothers. So I'm not related to her, but I feel like her DNA has, her spirit and her gifts have infused into my life. And so I thought about it, started listing some artists and other change makers that I found inspiring. And so the project is ongoing. I've done some work around Georgia O'Keeffe, who was my first favorite artist when I was a teen. And as well as my biological ancestors, so my grandmother on my mother's side, who I never met, as well as my grandmother on my dad's side, my great aunt on his side, and other women, and both women who were dynamic and women who were not, and thinking about different constraints on women's lives, and how at this point in my life, I'm trying to break out of those constraints myself and really reach out into the world.
Timing for that's really good, right? The whole world has had 18 months of introspection, working from home, roles have changed, how you communicate. So there's so many opportunities. And I'm fascinated by the fact that it's also a multidisciplinary and multi-year project that's brought you to this point.
Yeah, so it started in 2020 and I'm still working, but the pieces in this show at the Curtis Memorial Library in Brunswick are 30 pieces that all relate to this theme in different media. So it's not all painting, it's not all collage. There's a little of a variety of work, which is how I work. And because I became aware of some grant opportunities through the State Arts Commission, I just jumped in and applied and found out in July that I was the recipient for the Foremothers, the Story of Our Foremothers project. So a big piece of what they try to do is engage the audience. So that's when it really occurred to me to start gathering stories. And I've published 3 so far, I believe, and I have a couple more in the wings. And I've been inviting anybody who becomes aware of my project, whether they've seen all the work or not, to share a story of a foremother that has inspired them. So that's allowing me to use my writing skills and storytelling. And
you're well known as a landscape artist, and this is such a big, not a big step for you, but just it's engaging so many of the senses all at once. And to invite the community and to make comments as well, get their stories, I think is just a really exciting way to engage an audience, which is what art should be about, right? What's the goal of an artist? What's your goal as an artist these days?
I think it's always been to touch people, to touch them deeply, to get them to through seeing the art, to open up parts of themselves that maybe, have been remote. Somehow art helps you see more than you would normally see. So it's not just about reproducing appearances of things. It's really a lot deeper. It's a lot more about opening up the soul, really communicating deeply.
Can we take a minute and I'm going to do a screen share. And here's a piece, right, that's part of this project. And this to me it touched me personally, because I flashed back to being a small child in my grandparents' house. And that's what I remember. The older people sitting around the table. I'd be crawling underneath.
Yeah, absolutely.
There were these adult conversations. Yeah.
And this group of people, the woman on the left to the screen wearing the white string of beads is my great aunt, Fanny, Coltman. And she was my grandfather's sister. And they came to this country she was about 14, he was about 16 or 17, from Eastern Europe, from the Pale of Settlement. And she was sort of a legend in the family. And when I was a young adult, my sister and I decided to go visit her. And I think I visited her twice. This was just happening upon this luncheon of the Friendship Club, which was a group of friends. And they would get together in each other's homes, and the host would make food, and they'd sit around and have conversation. But it wasn't merely social. They were also very politically engaged, and they would talk about the world and what was going on. And some of them were poets. Some of them might have been, singers. I don't know. They all had a creative side and a very politically engaged side. So I always felt like Aunt Fanny, who was very brave and was a single mother before you hear about single mothers in the 20s, and had lived and raised her children, and stayed with very little resources, was able to give a lot to those around her.
It's wonderful. It's a wonderful piece. And to me, it's going back to roots, right? At a time that people are trying to figure out, how do I engage with others? And I'm physically distant. We used to send a letter, it would take weeks back in their day, from Europe to the US or back and forth. And now everything is instantaneous. There's no time to interpret. Things just happen. So our whole means of communication. So it's kind of fun to look at that piece and recognize that, several generations have gone by between then and now. And yet you can distill it and bring to the forefront a conversation point with people, just as other stories, other families. So I just commend you with what you're doing. Let's talk, just to close, in terms of how people can see it, because again, that's another part that I think makes such a difference. I don't have to be in Brunswick, Maine to do this. This is going to be a virtual presentation that we'll be able to find online, and we'll post the address when you get it. It's going to be up for what period of time?
Should be up for the month of October.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have to deliver the thumb drive today.
All right.
It's amazing to deliver
This is
3
breaking
pieces
news.
on a little thumb drive. Yes, and it's a lovely format once you get comfortable with it. If you have a computer, you go to the digital offerings at the Curtis Memorial Library's website, and there'll be a link to the exhibit, and you enter it like you're walking into a room, and you can zoom in to the pieces and zoom out and see the whole wall. So it feels like you're entering an actual gallery. So
Great.
it works.
And I'll post your website so that people who want to see more or learn more about you, as well as get more information on the blog post where you're engaging other people in sharing their stories.
Yes, I hope some of the viewers of Communicast will, send a story and a photo
to be shared.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you so much.
Chatting.